Okay, ladies and gents, can we start this panel? My name is Donatas Kupčiūnas. I'm a Baltic Fellow at the Center for Geopolitics, and it's my great pleasure to chair this event. The topic we'll be diving into today is how are Baltic Sea nations responding to the challenge? And we have three excellent speakers who will try to explain this to us today. Just a few notes on housekeeping in the beginning. So I'll introduce each speaker one by one. They'll talk for about 20 minutes each, and I'll make sure that you do not exceed that limit. If you do, my response will be swift, brutal, and inevitable. Because we want to have some time left for discussion at the end, for about half an hour for a Q&A session. So audience, you can save your questions to the very last part of this panel. So without any further ado, let me introduce to you our first speaker who joins us from Estonia. Erkki Koort, who is the head of the Internal Security Institute, Estonian Academy of Security Sciences, and also a former Deputy Secretary General in the Estonian Ministry of the Interior. Now, Erkki is someone who I guess we can call a true security professional. Among the posts he's held before was a Chief Superintendent of the Security Police Board in Estonia, also Deputy Secretary General for Internal Security at the Ministry of the Interior of Estonia, and even a head of a supervisory board at the Estonian Forensic Science Institute. And Erkki also holds a rank of police colonel, if I'm right. So Erkki, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and maybe I should mention that I hold a rank of the journalist as well. I don't know if it's necessary to have it, or my voice is here loud enough. I had the privilege to lead the biggest investigation. I had the privilege to lead investigative department in the biggest Estonian newspaper, Postimees. It was extremely interesting to see things through the eyes of the journalists, and previously also through the eyes of the employee of security service. And I'd like to be also in a library because I'm the writer. I have published 4 books, 4 novels. So unfortunately in Estonian right now, but Google Translate is for everyone. But I will start from the hybrid threats. It was mentioned already several times. However, what I have seen, let's say, during the approximately 1 year period, that hybrid threats are mainly seen as a military threat. It's not true, because the idea of the hybrid threats is to avoid conventional conflict. That means that kind of actions should be held under the Article 5 level. Sometimes we see that even the actor might be military or have a military background or connections. For example, Russian military intelligence, GRU. However, originator of that kind of acts might not be in the military. It might be civilian security service, or in Russian case, Russian president administration. What you're going to do about them, or how do you counter with those threats? Counterintelligence is extremely, and I will say vitally important. Why? After the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of European states liquidated their counterintelligence capability or decreased it. very seriously. After the 9/11, the main focus went to the terrorism, countering terrorism. That means that counterintelligence departments were decreased even more. And main idea or main reason why states did that, or at least what politicians said, was that during the intelligence operations, people won't be hurt or killed. But during terrorist attacks, people will die. It was like candy shop for those states who didn't liquidate their counterintelligence or intelligence services. And what we see right now is Russians have very, very strong intelligence network in a lot of countries. During the last 17 years, Estonia have catched 25 Russian spies. 25. I'm not sure that Estonia is the most important target for the Russian special services. I might mistake, but I'm not sure that we are the most important target. Yes, we have a common border. It creates opportunities for special services, that's for sure. But if I should say from where we found Russian spies in Estonia, it had been changed. That kind of at the beginning, we got spies from our security service and several spies. Then from Ministry of Defense, from Defense Forces. Then came the period I can call catching the agents who were smugglers of the different goods and human beings. So they were recruited as well. And last 3 spies are caught from universities. We found 2 Chinese military recruited agents from TALTE, Tallinn Technical University, from Sea Institute, and 1 GRU agent from University of Tartu, the biggest and oldest Estonian university. And he was he dealt with foreign policy. So that was that kind of interesting development of the areas where we got the spies. Hybrid threats definitely will be, or countering the hybrid threats will be even more important. It doesn't matter if there will be peace in Ukraine or not. Russian Federation will continue, definitely, the hybrid threats type of attacks. And what we have seen also several years ago, so to say, from 2022, when war, this huge phase of the war started, it was like that kind of being headless for some months. But after that, when there was not so successful military operation in grounds, in fields, then there was more interest to invest to the intelligence operations. And the hybrid threats through the intelligence services allow to draw the red lines of the different member states farther and farther. So if you do some kind of action, so to say, from 0 to 100, you will you might have some kind of reaction from origin state. However, if you do that kind of step by step, then possible victim will, I should say, maybe even not notice anymore that kind of pressure. So, and pressure will continue definitely. Subsea cables were mentioned. In Estonian Academy of Security Sciences, we did one research about subsea cables, undersea cables between Baltic states and other states, other Baltic Sea states, Finland, Sweden, Poland. And also we looked what the situation with Kaliningrad subsea cables. And Kaliningrad, through the subsea cables, are also very, very vulnerable. So if you talk about security of the region, we always hear that Kaliningrad district is like a military base in the heart of the Europe that creates huge problems for neighboring countries. That is true, for sure. However, Baltic states are like NATO's peninsula. One side is the sea, other side is the Russian Federation. But Kaliningrad is an island from that perspective. And it's very vulnerable. And Russia knows it very well. And to protect Baltic states is impossible without destroying the Kaliningrad. It's, from military perspective, it's impossible. Russia, as I mentioned, will continue with the hybrid threats. And not only Russia, Belarusian special services, Iran, and even China covertly, let's say, they carry out covert operations against their opposition members. And we have seen in Europe several times also the killings. And it will definitely continue. It's from Tallinn to Berlin is very good headline for that conference. Actually, 2019, he had a Georgian background and a Chechen background. He was Zelian Hangovich was killed in Berlin. Later on, it came out that it was carried out by Vadim Sokolov, who was GRU agent. He was exchanged last year, 1st of August, with a lot of people who were in Russian prisons, but he was GRU agent who was also exchanged, the murderer. And interesting fact that this weapon that he used to commit that crime was from Tallinn. It was stolen from Tallinn. It was one person legally had it. There was burglar case, and this weapon was stolen and was used 10 years later in Berlin for assassination. Also, the fight with the terrorism is definitely also important. It was mentioned state-supported terrorism. That is what we see right now. We have seen it before, even during our, let's say, when we got back our independence in 1991, we had 3 explosions in Estonia. There was exploded one monument, Bodyguard headquarters, and also one pro-Kremlin organization headquarters as well. 6 years later, in 1997, Estonian Security Service found out that it was organized, that's this pro-Kremlin movement itself, to provoke the conflict in Estonia. 1991, Russian military was still in Estonia. They left 1994. So it was very critical time, and we found out through the investigation that the organizers of that explosions got training, explosives, and money from Russian army, from Pskov airborne division, just next to the Estonian border, 50 kilometers from the Estonian border. And also, state-supported terrorism is something we should keep them in mind. However, Russian have, let's say, time to time I see that a lot of analysts in a Western European or European analysts do the mistake that Russians are not learning of their mistakes. It's totally wrong. They are very capable to learn about their mistakes and our mistakes and all mistakes. They have found also very good modus operandi that was used also by ISIS, online recruitment. So before you needed to meet with someone, right now you don't have to meet with someone anymore. And we have several cases all over Europe, also in Estonia. A year ago, there was a lot of vandalism against the monuments, Second World War monuments in Estonia. However, there was beaten personal car of the Minister of Interior. The windows were smashed, and also one journalist got the same case, that car windows were smashed, and Estonian Security Service arrested 10 persons who mainly were recruited online. Also, there was mentioned before that a lot of Russia will weaponize a lot of areas or that kind of what normally states won't weaponize. One is definitely Russian church in Estonia, and it's very hard to explain all over Europe and in United States that it's the real problem. It's not a question of the freedom of religion. Let's say Pope announced crusades in 13th century, in 12th century. But Russian Patriarch announces crusades our days. And he did that. And Russian Orthodox Church was liquidated in the Soviet Union, and it was re-established in 1943. free. Why? Because it helped mobilize nation during the Second World War time. It was during the Soviet time. It was controlled by the KGB. However, most of the leaders of that organization started during the Soviet times. It haven't changed. My last remark will be this name and shame. It's very important, and I very agree with the previous speakers that shaming is not something that will avoid Russian activities. That's for sure. However, what I see is also demonizing the Russia, and it's also very dangerous way. We have seen several times when something happened, and we got a lot of that kind of information for politicians that this was Russian hybrid attack. For example, there was a problem in southern Estonia with a one airfield that Russians jammed the GPS signal, and planes couldn't land in this Estonian airfield and take off. It's very small airfield. There is only few flights per day. It wasn't the target of the Russians. Why they jammed? Because of the Ukrainian drones. For Estonians, it was like one way, two things. So it's that was that kind of bonus of their activity. The same was with one cable between Finland and Sweden. Ministers said that it was a hybrid attack. Later on came out that no, it was men with workers, so digged land, and something like that happened. So it's very danger to demonize the enemy, because if you demonize, you will believe that it is invincible. So it's I would say that we should be careful, but of course we should investigate, and the name and shame as well if it changes something. Okay, I think my time is up, or not?
Thank you very much. That's exactly on time. Let's go straight to our second speaker today, who is Mateusz Mielczarek, if I'm correct. Yes. So Mateusz is a Chief Strategy Officer at the Permanent Secretariat of the Community of Democracies, and he's also a Research Assistant at Future Threats Lab at the Department of War Studies at King's College London. His expertise focuses on the information manipulation and interference, deterrence, and future of warfare, with particular focus on NATO, Ukraine, and Russia. So, Mateusz, we're very much looking forward to what you have to say.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So now is the time to adjust the title just for a few minutes. So from Tallinn through Warsaw to Berlin. Well, I would like to focus on three questions. First of all, what is the challenge? Secondly, what is the current response to this challenge? And thirdly, what else could be done? So what is the challenge? Well, let me start with an interesting news from today, just like I saw it a few hours ago. So Poland's military intervened a few hours ago after a ship from the Russian Shadow Fleet and on the sanction list was seen performing some suspicious maneuvers near a power cable connecting Poland with Sweden. And that's interesting. Actually, a spokesperson for the Polish grid operator said the cable was working and the data showed over 600 megawatts were flowing to Sweden through the cable during the time when the maneuvers has happened. So I think this is a clear example how urgent and evolving is our topic today. Well, I think we are facing four main challenges in the Baltic Sea region. Obviously, the first one is the conventional threat, probably not very likely right now, but obviously we must ensure security against potential Russian attack, not only by land or air, but also by sea. And it's worth mentioning, it has been already mentioned a few times here, Königsberg. So Poland has changed the name of Kaliningrad a few months ago to the previous name, Königsberg. Well, a fun fact from history. In 1946, the name of the region was renamed to Kaliningrad after Mikhail Kalin, one of the leaders of the Bolshevik Revolution, who was, to put it diplomatically, very hostile towards Poland. So we decided to follow the tradition and change the name to Königsberg. But coming back to the strategy, Königsberg is quite crucial to Russia's military capability in Baltic, because this is the only year-round ice-free port of the Baltic fleet. So has some strategic importance. And let me now move to the second challenge that we face, and it's probably more urgent and more likely that something will happen. So the unconventional threats, and mainly, obviously, the threats to critical infrastructure. The energy, this is one of the main challenges. Various elements of critical infrastructure are at risk, and let me show a few examples also from the Polish perspective. So the Baltic pipe, for instance, a pipeline from Poland to Denmark that transports gas. There are now, I believe, 10 terminals in operation and 2 under construction that will deal with oil and gas, such as those currently in Gdańsk, Butynga, Windewa, and Rostock. They are crucial for the transportation of crude oil and petroleum products, and if we want to be energy independent from Russia, and I'm quite convinced that we want to, we need to secure properly this infrastructure. And it's not only about the pipelines or terminals, it's also about the high voltage electricity. As I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, they also run through the Baltic, undersea telecommunication cables, and obviously this is not only a problem of Baltic. Let's look, for example, at Houthis' hostile activities, and last but not least, the expanded wind farms that could be also destroyed. And apart from energy, the GPS jamming that you have mentioned, well, let me share a few words from the recent studies by Polish researchers. So they suggest that GPS disruptions in the Baltic Sea are likely caused more often by moving vessels rather than land-based sources. A study conducted by Maritime University in Gdańsk detected 84 hours of interference in recent months, with some incidents lasting up to 7 hours, potentially affecting navigation in waterways. The study also found that the jamming actively appears to originate from ships and international waters, potentially due to powerful jamming devices being used. And this is quite interesting because it aligns with past reports of high-power radio equipment fitted aboard vessels in the Russian Shadow Fleet. The third challenge is not connected to damages per se, but I think it's still quite important. So the logistics. 15% of all goods reach Poland via Baltic Sea. Gdańsk serves as the largest container hub on the Baltic Sea. And obviously, everyday goods are important, but there is also a strategic element here. So we must remember that, for example, artillery or tanks from Republic of Korea or the United States are delivered by sea, not by land, not by air. So it's important to make sure that this passage is open and will be open. And last but not least, the shadow fleet, obviously, is interconnected with three other challenges, but also some numbers that are, I think, interesting and important to see the scale. Since the war began, the full-scale invasion, Russia has earned around 760 billion pounds from sales of oil, gas, and coal, according to the Center for Energy and Clean Air, and this is actually data from today. And last year, 348 shadow fleet vessels, making up 40% of Russia's total oil sales, departed from Baltic ports. And this is important because now we'll see the scale. This is equivalent to a third of Moscow's annual defense budget. So it's quite crucial to finally finish this project of the shadow fleet. And obviously the UNCLOS treaty about law of the sea provides strong protection for any ship in international waters. So there is the right of innocent passage, which basically means that you can go where you want, when you want, without being checked on board, searched, or turned away. But this certainly doesn't mean that democratic governments should allow these laws to be used to conduct hostile activities. And I think the Finnish response to the attack on the East Link power link between Finland and Estonia, carried out by Russia on, well, surprisingly enough, Christmas Day, in which 4 data cables were also damaged, was absolutely right, because Finnish response was swift and decisive. Finnish security personnel boarded the ship and took over the suspected perpetrator, which was the Eagle S ship. China was mentioned a few times during our discussion today, and I think this is also quite important aspect, because today we obviously know that the PRC is participating to some extent in the Russian Shadow Fleet program. And our reaction as NATO, or let's say collective West, is also a hint for Beijing about what they can potentially do in the Taiwan Strait in the near future. Well, so what is the response right now? Poland spends a lot of money on defense, the highest number of GDP, almost 5%. We also invest a lot of money in the Navy. The centerpiece of Poland's maritime modernization is the Miecznik, extremely difficult word in Polish, which is swordfish, frigate program. And actually the Polish vessels are said to be better armed than their British equivalents. There is also a program to purchase new submarines. And an aspect that is not precisely connected to the Navy. Our MFA has closed 2 Russian consulates due to evidence that the Russian special services committed several acts of sabotage. Then the NATO and EU response. As I said, I think the response to Shadow Fleet actions should be decisive. There cannot be a situation in which a ship suspected of hostile activity is able to sail away from Baltic. I think the NATO mission, Baltic Sentry, is a step in a good direction. The aim is basically to replicate the air policing model, but on the sea. And a good news from Brussels. So yesterday the EU formally approved its 17th package of sanctions imposed on Russia, including measures against almost 200 shadow fleet vessels. A similar decision, I believe, has been made by the UK's Prime Minister. And he announced the largest ever sanctions package targeting the shadow fleet. And apart from NATO and EU, I think also there is an important aspect of other international organizations, regional focused, but not only. Poland at the moment is, if you will, a collector of presidencies. In addition to the presidency at the Council of the EU, it also holds the presidency in my organization, the Committee of Democracies, of which most of the Baltic Sea states are members, and also holds, this is quite new, the presidency of the Council of the Baltic Sea states. I think it's good to discuss these things among the committed countries and like-minded. Finally, what else could be done? Well, first and foremost, I think there should be some common protocol on how do we react decisively to a shadow fleet. Russia must know what consequences it will face if it sends a ship from a shadow fleet that, for example, damages a pipeline. Otherwise, certainly deterrence will not work. And a few words about the sanctions. So, two issues, I would say. The first one, we should really work on improvement in the field of unification of sanctions between the EU, United Kingdom and the US, because there are some situations when the sanctions could be avoided because one of the main actors is not involved. And the second one, well, I would say the persuasive talks with countries that use the shadow fleet services, right? Because this is, well, shadow fleet is not in place only because of the fact that Russia would like to make our lives miserable, but primarily to bypass sanctions and earn money. And we know that there is a draft bill in the US Congress regarding the introduction of secondary sanctions. However, I'm not sure whether it's feasible right now, but certainly this would make easier to combat this challenge. Thirdly, what else could be done? Poland has strongly backed the Czech Republic's proposal to restrict the movement of Russian diplomats. We also tackled this problem in the Schengen area. So currently, Russian diplomats are able to travel from country where they are posted to the different country within the Schengen zone. And obviously some of Russian diplomats, or most of them, do not follow the principles of Vienna Convention. So I think they should be posted only in the country when they are when are they posted. The NATO also appeared in the conversation today, and I believe that effective protection of our interests in the Baltic Sea can be an excellent opportunity to show our allies, also in Washington, and certainly also to our opponents, that Europe takes its security seriously, and that NATO is not just a funny meme, but a symbol of our approach towards the security of Baltic Sea. And last but not least, a final reflection from the Polish perspective. So, Poland has been oriented for years on the east and west axis. The east is, of course, the threat from Russia that is well known and quite well documented by history. And the west was the aspiration to join NATO and EU years ago. And because of this fact, I think the north-south axis seems to me to have been somewhat forgotten, or at least not explored enough. And today I think Poland is in a different moment and should devote more attention to building strong relations with the countries of the north. The Nordics, the Baltics understand perfectly well that there is a real threat from Russia, so it is worth building a coalition of the willing around the Baltic Sea. And here I will stop.
Thank you very much. And finally, our third speaker today is Dr. Heljä Ossa, who is a research fellow at LSE Ideas working on the non-nuclear deterrence. Her areas of expertise include European security and defense policy, NATO, transatlantic relations, and Finnish foreign policy. Heljä holds a PhD in military sciences from the Finnish National Defense University, with her dissertation focusing on European strategic autonomy from the United States perspective. She also co-authored a book called NATO's Burden Sharing Disputes, Past, Present, and Future Prospects. So, Heljä.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the boring academic who presents a paper and has a slideshow, but hopefully that helps you stay awake at this point of day. I'd like to kind of start from where the last panel ended on deterrence and civil preparedness and their relationship. So I'm presenting a paper that I'm currently working on with my Polish colleague, Agata Mazurkiewicz from Jagiellonian University in Krakow. And this paper is part of a larger project at LSE where we study non-nuclear deterrence. Next slide, please. So our paper focuses on civil preparedness and societal resilience and their role in deterrence. And as we've already discussed, the concept of deterrence is broadening and becoming more comprehensive, which is why Agata and I thought that it's important to also consider civil involvement, resistance, and civil preparedness when we discuss deterrence, and especially non-nuclear deterrence. And this is particularly important within the deterrence by denial and containment framework, which are, as we already covered, the opposites of more traditional understandings of deterrence that is based on ideas of punishment and retaliation. So in our paper, we analyzed the involvement of civilians in Polish and Finnish security systems to find out to what degree the society is framed as an agent of security. And we analyzed this in relation to civil preparedness, resistance, and resilience in times of hybrid and conventional warfare. So in the paper, we ask, for example, to what degree the society is framed as an agent of security in relation to civil preparedness, resistance, and resilience, what kind of roles are assigned to civilians, and to what degree civilians are made responsible for security and resilience and deterrence as well. Next one, please. So very, very briefly, the boring part, so theory and methods. I'm sure everyone appreciates that. So we believe that deterrence by denial is a relevant concept when we discuss civil preparedness and civil defense, because it does not only entail military actors, but also the civil society, businesses, media, and other societal actors. And also, deterrence by denial is closely linked to other similar concepts like containment and prevention and so on, which are all very relevant concepts when we discuss civil preparedness and defense. And as for our methods, we use policy frame analysis to investigate how Poland and Finland, in a way, conceptualize and approach the involvement of civilians in security. And we focus on two kind of frames the rhetoric frame and action frame. And what this means in practice is that we analyze the rhetoric of national security concepts, policies, official documents, so on, and then analyze how this rhetoric is, in a way, translated into action, actual policies. And based on this analysis, we discuss the ways in which civilian potential kind of feeds into deterrence and containment. Next slide, please. So, why Finland and Poland? Well, we thought that it's interesting to analyze Finland and Poland because they share the perception of Russia as the main security threat, which quite obviously stems from the historical relationships which are troubled and long, to put it mildly. They obviously share the same geopolitical location, have the frontline state identity and role, especially now that Finland is also in NATO, and they have also increased their cooperation quite a lot in the past few years. But they also approach civil preparedness and civil defense and other related concepts very differently, which makes it interesting to study. And actually, we've found out that one of the main differences in Polish and Finnish strategic cultures is the role of civil society in security. Next one, please. So Agata would be much better at explaining the Polish perspective, but thank God we have Mateusz. Mateusz, yeah, exactly. Sorry to pronounce it so wrong. Here to cover if I say something completely wrong. But just very briefly about the Polish approach, Poland has a very long tradition of resistance, but this has not really materialized in strong civilian agency in the Polish security system. The country relies quite heavily on armed forces, and it's, my understanding is that it's natural to the Polish people to that the armed forces are the first and often also the last resort that they have, and that's why there's really not any kind of strong civilian capability. And as a result of that, the agency of the society in the Polish security is quite low. Next one, please. A bit more broadly about Finland, because that's what I actually know about. In Finland, the story is quite different compared to Poland. The concept of civil preparedness is very deeply rooted in the ideas of comprehensive security, which kind of dominates the Finnish preparedness discourse and practice. And because of that, civil preparedness is often discussed within that framework, within the framework of comprehensive security, and not as a concept of its own. So in Finland, civil preparedness as a kind of explicit concept, it's still quite new. It is slowly emerging, but still based on previous research, it seems that incorporating the concept of civil preparedness more closely to the overall security and preparedness discourse and actual security, it's not seen very essential in Finland because the model and the concept of comprehensive security already exists. So there's a bit of reluctance to do this kind of double work in a way. Just to give you a few examples of what the comprehensive security model and civil preparedness actually looks like in Finland. Next one, please. There's a very kind of long-standing association called the National Defense Training Association. And it's a national training association that trains and educates citizens to be prepared for dangerous situations in everyday life and under exceptional conditions and crisis situations. And the idea of the association or these courses is to support the readiness of the Finnish defense forces and other authorities in the security sector by preparing people for different kinds of scenarios and situations. The courses are mainly directed for reservists, so to people who have done the military service and want to refresh their skills, like shooting, for example. But there are also courses for people who have no experience in the military, but who are interested in practicing for emergencies and survival skills, so on. One of the most popular courses there is a weekend course for women who are considering doing the military service, so they can go to this course for one weekend and see if military service is actually what they would like to do before they actually sign up for that. And in general, there are also other courses for women, especially this kind of survival skills and preparing for emergencies, which are extremely popular. After the war in Ukraine started, these courses were fully booked within a few days, and they had to create new courses. And it was maybe in a way Finnish people's reaction to what was happening. These courses also support municipalities and other civilian authorities like the Red Cross. They offer preparedness and civil protection training. They teach, for example, search operations, evacuating, mass lodging, and so on. So this kind of courses that really serve the whole society, not just the military. Next one, please. Then the name of this course is pretty similar as the previous one, but it's quite different. So while the previous one, the National Defense Training Association, it's very bottom up, the national defense courses, they are quite elitist and kind of top down, more like. They are invitation-only courses and very much appreciated and sought after. So if you get an invitation to this course, you know you're someone. I still haven't got mine, but, but I don't dare to ask because then I will never get invited. Usually these courses last about 3-4 weeks. They're very intensive and like really almost every day you have long days, you have a few days in military bases, visits to different organizations, to the media. Some have even had a chance to fly a jet fighter, you know, pretty cool stuff. And the people who are invited to these courses, they're usually in leadership positions in different sectors of the society. There are MPs, business leaders, media representatives, NGOs, artists, culture, all the possible sectors that you can think of. And the idea is that these people come together, learn about comprehensive security, get to know each other, so that in case of an emergency, they know what they can do, what's their role in that situation, and most importantly, they have connections to these different sectors of the society. So you get to know people who you would perhaps never meet otherwise. A couple of things that I don't have on the slides, but I think it was about half a year ago, Finland published this kind of preparedness online guide. Sweden did the same. They actually printed a booklet. Finland apparently ran out of money and only did it online. But there you have instructions of what to do in almost any kind of crisis situation. If it's power outage, flooding, water outage, terrorism, actual war, pretty much anything, and there are things you need to do, how you can prepare, who you need to contact, and it's all in one place. And another thing that it's always mentioned when talking about Finnish comprehensive security and civil preparedness are the civil shelters. And I think if you've ever been to Helsinki on an official trip, you've probably been brought to those bunkers. I cannot remember now how many those are exactly, but for example, in the capital in Helsinki, there are more spaces than there are people living in the city. So everyone has a place in those civil shelters. Some of them are in better shape than others, especially if your shelter is under in your basement. Probably not as nice as the bigger ones, but there is space for everyone. And what I want to say with these examples is that these are not rocket science. Any country can do this. It takes time, it takes a lot of effort. It doesn't happen in a day or even a year, but it's very much doable. If you have connections to people who actually decide these things, I encourage you to, give these examples and say that anyone can do this. Okay, coming back to the paper. Next slide, please. Some of our findings and conclusions. First of all, we found that the role of civilians seems to be very different in Finland compared to Poland. So in Finland, as we've seen, individuals are not only objects of security and preparedness, but they are seen as active security providers. So individuals are seen to have valuable skills and knowledge that in a way form a basis for a resilient civil society. And preparedness is considered an important civic skill that needs to be practiced. And that's what the country or the government kind of encourages people to do. Whereas in contrast, the Polish model presents more clear priorities between the protectors and those requiring protection, so the military and the civilians. And here the state and the military they're the primary agents of security, while individuals and citizens have a significantly smaller role compared to the Finnish model. Next one, please. Second observation is that in the context of hybrid warfare, civilians are increasingly drawn into roles that have traditionally been held by combatant soldiers. And they face threats like cyber attacks and disinformation that in a way blur the line between on the battlefield and challenge the responsibilities of civilians and combatants. And while this kind of shift risks eroding the combatant non-combatant distinction, we believe that it also offers an opportunity to empower civilians through well-planned preparedness and resilience strategies. But coming back to the well-planning things, we argue that this kind of responsibilization without proper frameworks, capabilities, and knowledge, resources, there's a risk that it becomes just an empty gesture, and it leaves societies vulnerable rather than resilient. So building a strong civil society that is able to contribute to readiness and preparedness, it's not a spontaneous phenomenon, like I said, but it's a long-term process that requires sustained resources, investments in education, in institutions, grassroots level organizations, NGOs, and so on. But we also highlight in the paper that many of these features that are crucially important for building civil preparedness and resilience, like feeling of belonging and social trust, you cannot buy these things with money. So you have to have other ways how to invest in these, not just with cash. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent, and you all get a star for being on time and leaving us about leaving us about 20 minutes, good 20 minutes for the discussion. So while you're gathering your thoughts, I'll ask the first question. Erkki was already touching upon this a little bit, but I'd like to expand this further. So the dark side of resilience, of this whole resilience thing, resilience building in these little and sometimes inward-looking countries, the dangers of overdoing it, right? I mean, I don't know about your countries, but and you know, I come from Lithuania originally, and I have been observing what's going on there from a bit of an outside perspective from here, and you know, the view is not pleasant. You have chauvinism on the rise, clearly, have nationalism on the rise, and what's most fascinating, you get all these people on telly these days who normally would never be there, would never be allowed even, you know, at arm's length. All sorts of hot-headed wannabe soldiers of fortune telling people, you know, how to live, waving, you know, a rifle in the air on live TV. Just, you know, two examples of this. One of these hotheads recently said, again on record, you know, on TV, on public television, he said, maybe we should shoot people who listen to Russian music in Lithuania, you know. Of course, he later tried to play it down as a joke, but this is not a joke if you know this guy's background and if you know where he's coming from, you know, so it's not, you know, it's probably thinking like that. And another example from my own field, one of my academic colleagues from Lithuania recently told me that he's been pressured by agents of Lithuanian security service not to say certain things and not to go to certain TV shows and not to talk to certain journalists who do not toe the party line. And I said, you know, this is ridiculous. He laughed at me and said, Donatas, I see that you clearly haven't been here for a while, you know. So I wanted to ask you guys, based on your experience in your home countries, do you see any symptoms of this, of sort of overdoing this sort of resilience, this galvanizing of the society, and what do you see there?
I can begin. Well, we don't have kids with guns on TV yet. I hope we'll never see that, but. And it's not as extreme as you described in Finland, but clearly there are signs of more militarized discourse and yeah, kind of military and war and all these topics, they are more present in the society, in the everyday discussions with people. There's not a day that there's not some kind of security-related topic in kind of evening talk shows and so on. So it's very much present there. But I would say it's still on a healthy level, but we cannot take that for granted. We have to be careful that it doesn't kind of overpower the discussion. I think one reason why Finland security and defense is so kind of visible in Finland is also the fact that we still have conscription, and military and military service is somehow present in practically everyone's life. Even though if you don't do the military service yourself, someone in your family, your father, brother, nowadays also, you know, women can do it. So it's much more natural to talk about military and defense and security than in some other countries, and you're not considered crazy because you did a military service. But yeah, I am slightly worried about the more militarized public debate, but hopefully we'll not get into too extreme cases.
Anyone else who'd like to?
I can jump in. I mean, I know what you mean, but I don't see that this is a really big challenge or risk right now in Poland and also in the neighboring countries. And well, I think it's very difficult not to be quite not sure about the Russian intentions. If you see, for instance, Bucha, if you see imperialistic approach since 2014 or even before Georgia and so on, and nationalism and chauvinism. Well, I would say it really depends on the definition of nationalism, because without some kind of nationalism and patriotic approach, I would say Ukraine probably wouldn't survive. I mean, without this catalysator that emerged, especially after the full-scale invasion. So, if I have to judge, I would say there are the number of risks that are the consequence of being pro-Russian are quite higher than being quite hesitant towards Russia.
Erkki, would you like to?
Yeah, I would like. It's very good point actually that should be raised. I haven't seen in Estonia that kind of things. Of course, people, journalists, talk shows, talking much more about the war than before. After the 24th of February 2022, a lot of people joined with the Military Defense League. It's voluntary-based defense organization. There is more than 40,000 members. They are armed. They can hold weapons at home, machine guns and other type of weapons. We haven't seen problems that some kind of problems arise with because of that situation. I remember when I started my police career and security service career, we had a lot of problems with the members of Defense League who had guns at home, but not right now. Also, we didn't got that kind of cases that someone threatened that, let's say, anyone who listened to Russian music should be shot. Nothing like that. However, I worried much more about that kind of, I don't know, championship. Who will predict the date when Russia will attack the NATO? And this is very stupid game. I don't know why lot of politicians like to do that. It will be very bad for economy. It will be bad for demographic perspective. Also investments, foreign investments. So it is. Does the Russian Federation has will? Yes, of course. However, it doesn't have power enough to do that. Also, what is problematic is, I will call it securitization, that everything that government will do, it's because of the security. We will raise the taxes because of the security. We will raise the taxes and all the money will go to the defense budget. It won't go to the defense budget. And if you will, let's say, always say that it's because of the security and the society will see that it wasn't the case, it won't be good for the government popularity, but it won't be good for security as well, for the military, for police, for the security services. However, the comment about the security services and their that kind of talks. I know that in Estonia as well, security service time to time approaches to someone and they talk. I don't know what about they talk and what they will say. Of course, they time to time recommend something. However, there is the phenomenon of subcultures. If you work in prison as a guard, if you won't deal with that, you will take over some criminal subculture. It is so, and it is same with the security services. If you fight against Russian security services and you won't deal with that problem, you will take over the mentality, not completely, but partly. And this is something, let's say, this civil control over the security services should deal with. It won't be like security services of democratic states will act like or in a favor of Russian Federation. No, it's nothing like that. But you see the toolbox of the enemy, and maybe you will also like to have some kits of that toolbox. So that is something we should keep in mind.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, gentleman here. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm David Blair. I'm a visiting journalist from the Daily Telegraph. Could I ask about the conventional threat? All three of the Baltic states, plus Finland and Poland, are withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention to allow the deployment of landmines, which is quite a big break with the European consensus as it once existed. Is that necessary, and how effective would it be?
If I may answer. It was huge debate in Estonia, at least. Some of politicians and also former military officers said it long time ago that we should leave from Ottawa Convention because it's cheap defense line. Problem for Baltic states is that we don't have place to retreat. We don't have it. I would say, from military perspective, we should not mine Estonian, Latvian or Lithuanian soil, but during the conflict, the Russian soil. Because it's mining from distance is nothing unique and nothing new. It's possible, but it's for political point of view, states should be ready for that. And what we see during the war in Ukraine as well, if you want to somehow disturb the Russian actions, you should cover you should attack aggressor's ground. It will help, at least for a while.
Any other comments?
Go ahead if you
Okay,
have.
sure. So I would say it's quite difficult not to think about the potential war between one of the NATO's members and Russia, and one of the lessons learned definitely that we can take from the current Russian aggression on Ukrainian soil is that Russia does not really have the limits. Again, I mentioned Bucha and so on. So I would say it's absolutely necessary to take some preventive steps, and there are two things. The first one is to withdraw from the convention and to prove and show that we follow the international law, because this is quite important to be consistent in this regard. Russia is not consistent at all, even as a member of the permanent member of the UN Security Council. And the second aspect is the question of buying and putting the mines on the ground, which actually is not the case at the moment.
Yes, not much to add, except just a few points that were raised in the Finnish debate in particular. The government seemed to make the decision fairly quickly. There was not much public debate before, but the debate happened kind of after the decision had already been made. One of the main concerns, especially from that side that was more against leaving the convention, was the question of civilian casualties, and then the other side of the debate, who support leaving the convention, emphasized that that the mines would not hurt civilians because the mines would be used in the battlefield and only against this adversary, so the Russian soldiers. And the second point that was often raised is like, can a small state like Finland question the rules-based order and convention that it has agreed to? Because from a small state perspective, rules are the only kind of way to keep us safe, and kind of hoping that everyone respects the rules that they have signed up for. So that was the second kind of debate, but to be honest, the debate has kind of tried out. There's nothing about the Ottawa Convention at the moment in the Finnish public debate.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Trev at the back. Oh yeah, okay.
Thank you. Picking up on, I think, a really interesting point that Erkki made about Russian penetration of universities. And I know of cases that have been publicised in Norway and other countries as well. And I'm thinking about sitting here in Cambridge, where it all started, of course, with the Cambridge spies being recruited by the Soviets back in the 1930s. So there's a glorious tradition here of, people working for the other side. A lot of interest in this subject in the UK, a lot of people thinking about it, but it's a really difficult problem. On the one hand, universities and research institutions are very attractive targets, not just for Russia, but for China and other threat actors. On the other hand, they rely for their success, and they're crucial to future economic prosperity. They rely for their success on being free-flowing global institutions where there's a free flow of people and ideas. They are quintessentially international. And I'm really interested in your views and how you square that circle between, on the one hand, helping to protect them against that kind of penetration by hostile state actors, but at the same time enabling them to continue to be very open global institutions.
Let's take one more. Trev, would you like?
Thank you very much. Trevelyan, obviously, here at the Center for Geopolitics. No, thank you very much. This has been a fascinating panel. Our next session, of course, is themed, How Can We Do Better? And given that we have a Finn, a Pole, an Estonian, and a Lithuanian there on stage, I am mindful of, again, the next session. I'm curious what each of you would say on this front. Also, of course, this conference is co-organized with the Hans Eyl Foundation. So, and we have, as you can see, the cover photo for this is an image of a German soldier, and of course we have a much bigger German presence that's going to be coming into the Baltics, especially we already see that in Lithuania. So I guess the question there is, what can other countries, for example, indeed the United Kingdom, but of course countries like Germany, indeed others, do following perhaps the lessons that we have learned to date in each of your countries? Thank you very much.
Okay, two good questions. Who would like to start?
I will start with this first question. Yeah, that is problem actually that both Russia and China will also try to recruit people from universities still, and they succeed as well. And this pressure will increase. There is two reasons. One is that sanctions for the Russian Federation, that they should increase the level of industrial espionage, definitely. And the same is with China, because right now seems that at least, I don't know it's permanent or not, the cooperation with China is a bit stopped, not stopped, but a bit stopped in some areas. That will increase also the need of industrial espionage from China. Do the people who work with the different materials, do they understand in the universities that they are the targets? No, they won't. For example, in our school, in Academy of Security Sciences, we have, we prepare personnel, we are a very unique school, we prepare personnel for police, border guard, for prisons, for tax and customs, for firefighters, bomb squads, practically all areas of security and safety except military personnel. Right now, head of police is our graduate, head of security service is our graduate, former head of military forces was also our graduate. And I asked from, after the Estonian security service catch the spy from the Tartu University, I asked from my colleagues that, do you know that you are targets as well? Because next head of security service will be also probably our graduate, and maybe next as well. And they said, no, we never thought about it. So even the school which prepares the personnel in the security area, even the personnel of that school won't take it as a threat. European Commission came out with an initiative last year to raise the level of science security. They will come with some other conclusions, probably in June or maybe in autumn latest. So that is raised in EU level at least, and I know that they will create a small cell as well, which will give that kind of best practice and try to share with the member states. So, thank you.
Well, I think I don't have enough expertise to take the first question, but let me try to give some perspective on the second one. Well, how can we do better? Simple answer, treat the military spending seriously. And I believe a lot of us from, let's say, security, IR bubble, attended countless number of events, conferences about the European autonomy and so on. And well, I do agree that it would be good to have more capabilities in Europe, but As for now, I would say we have a lot of conversations and not enough real outcomes. And a good example is the production of ammunition in Europe. The fact that we have only a very limited number of factories that are able to produce ammunition from the scratch. I mean that the whole process could take place within one entity is quite interesting after more than 3 years of full-scale invasion in Ukraine.
I'll also skip directly to the question 2 just to save time. So what can others like the UK learn from Finland? Well, comparing Finland to UK is quite impossible. UK is so much more bigger. It's so different to have comprehensive security for people of, I mean, country of 5 million people versus UK. I don't even remember how many million we have here at the moment. Also, Finland is quite homogeneous in a way compared to UK. UK is much more culturally diverse, which I think is also a good thing. So the kind of starting point is very, very different. I hope I'm not insulting the Brits saying that the UK has a glorious past in civil preparedness, but I also believe that this glorious past can be kind of revived. And it just requires better trust in politics, politicians, institutions, kind of feeling of togetherness, that we are in this together, feeling of belonging. And this is required so that people really believe that the country is worth defending. I saw a video in Instagram or somewhere where they asked young British people, like, would you defend your country if there was a war? And I think 1 out of 10 said yes, everyone else said no. And when asked why not, they said, well, I don't like the government. And I was like, well, you're not defending the government, you're defending, you know, freedom, you're defending your family, friends, your way of life, you know, freedom, liberty, all these grand ideas. So, you know, kind of, we need a switch in the mindset that it's not government per se that needs to be defended, but, you know, our lifestyle.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid this is all we have time for in this panel. Thank you very much, panelists. Thank you very much, audience, for your clever questions, and a big round of applause to all of you.